Tonight, we begin with exclusive new video in the murder investigation of a woman found dead inside a trash bag in Kips Bay.
It comes as police have charged a man in connection with the killing. Right now, he has not been arrested for the murder, but for concealing a corpse. CBS 2's Lisa Rosner is live outside the police station in Kips Bay with that new surveillance video. Lisa.
Well, Christina and Dick, that video just adds to the pain of how casually Yazmeen Williams' body was tossed to the curb. Police tell us that 55-year-old Chad Irish could be facing more charges tonight. Exclusive video shows a man in a motorized wheelchair casually dragging what appears to be the same trash bag that 31-year-old Yazmeen Williams' lifeless body was found inside of, wrapped in a sleeping bag. Friday, police responded to a call of a suspicious package on 27th Street between 2nd and 3rd Avenues. The medical examiner ruled it a homicide, saying Williams was shot in the head. The spot where she was discovered, now a growing memorial.
Yazmeen was really a caring person. She was energetic. She knew people around the neighborhood, so she was very loving. So it's pretty sad.
Tuesday, members of the NYPD crime scene unit went to collect evidence from the apartment of 55-year-old Chad Irish, who now faces 1 count of concealment of a human corpse. Sources say the charge stems from him being seen on surveillance video dragging the body, and they are also trying to determine if the murder happened in his apartment. Police sources say Irish, who is on parole, is a prime suspect in the murder.
Definitely should deserve him to be in jail and locked up. Doesn't deserve to come home or none of that.
You feel like it was him?
For sure. Definitely.
How come?
He was always with her, so it definitely got to be him.
Do you know if they were dating or if she was living there or anything like that? Or?
Not necessarily, but I know he would bring her home. Like she would go to his house. Yeah, I just know he could be abusive though.
His outrage was shared Monday night. A crowd erupted, attacking Irish as police pulled him out of the building on a gurney and confiscated his dog and wheelchair. Police sources add that on Monday, before his arrest, he allegedly menaced a man with a gun during an argument. So he faces menacing and weapon possession charges in that case, too.
I don't know if this is the actual killer, but how inhumane you're dragging down the block somebody's daughter. You know, he should be lucky that the police got him before that community.
Men and boys are increasingly anti-intellectual, and this is primarily because of male supremacist culture. Because men are the ultimate status quo, male supremacy can never be examined as an ideology. They are mentally coddled by privilege in every way. Even in school, they are not challenged to critique or question male supremacist bias. This reflects in their art, debate, and writing. Intellectualism encourages humanization of human issues. It requires introspection. Ego makes introspection and reflection nearly impossible, and society inflates the ego of boys from day one. This is why most men can be professors or religious scholars and still remain so fucking obtuse about the basic mechanics of human evil in society. Their analysis of social evil is infantile, simplistic, and emotional. Because they censor any damning data against the elite class of men, they will spout thought-terminating cliches in order to shield themselves from the reality of male violence and how it flourishes directly due to male culture. So there is no reflection or self-examination, no exposure to relevant data, which can only trap them in intellectual dishonesty and hypocrisy. Anti-feminists are always anti-intellectual because they must take male supremacy, violence, and privilege for granted. They then spend the rest of their lives wondering about the dissonance they never seem to quell and call it an unanswerable mystery of the human condition. So I'm just going to say this. I'm not sure where she is, and I am almost certain that she will never see this video because I am a nobody. a non-motherfucking factor, as you all say, and totally irrelevant in these YouTube streets. I know that, but I wanted to call attention right now to Cynthia G and the amount of work that she put in regards to teaching Black women what she felt that they needed to know. Something really should be said about Cynthia G and the work she has done for the countless years she spent educating Black women. There was a Twitter post a while ago about what social media looked like prior to Cynthia G, and it was utterly vile. Many of those social media spaces were dominated by men, and these men were very vocal about their hatred of women. They were always vocal. Historically, they were vocal, and their hate for women spilled out of their mouths and around the neck of that same woman. I listened to Cynthia G before I even heard of 4B, but also after I learned about what the Black women did in Liberia. And I'm going to tie this all together with the video clip at the top of the video because I want to show you where we are in regards to the male in our society. Being Cynthia G, the male today, and Black women historically, and what they've done to kind of shut their bodies down in forms of protest. So, what I've heard on YouTube and also in the TikTok streets is that Black women are copying 4B from Korean women, and that Black women have no right to culturally appropriate another woman's culture because she has no idea what's going on in Korea. And how dare she copy a group of women and then practicing this refusal to engage with men, or feminist separatism, if you will. So let's talk about that. And we're going to talk, and the reason why I love history is because history will always make things clear in regards to who copied from whom. And I just want you to listen to this. Black women can never copy. They can never copy from anyone because they are the blueprint to almost everything on the planet in regards to liberation, intellectualism, and resistance. I need for you to understand that, especially when it comes to resistance, okay? So we're going to talk about Lema Gabawi, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing her name, and I'm going to talk about her receiving the Nobel Peace Prize. And this is what it says, and this happened in 2011. 4B rose out of Korea in 2015. Okay, but let's look at what the Black woman did first before we start to say that the Black woman is copying off of another group of women. Okay, so here it reads. Lema received the Nobel Peace Prize in 2011 for her work in leading a women's peace movement that brought an end to the Second Liberian Civil War in 2003. Did you hear that? In 2011, she received the Nobel Prize for her work. This is the woman who organized a sex strike to stop a civil war, and it worked. She didn't even have to not have sex with these men for years. It only took about 150 days for it to penetrate these men and their minds to halt this civil war. This is what the Black woman did first. So this dialogue that the Black woman is copying Korean women, it has to stop. And also, we have to give credit to Cynthia G for first sparking that dialogue on Bichulsan. And we know in 4B, Bichulsan means to halt childbirth. There's nothing wrong with talking about halting childbirth in a world that doesn't deserve children. And instead of people understanding that, I think Cynthia G was villainized and demonized as saying something that has already been done in history. If you research, for example, King Leopold in the Congo, women in the Congo, to stop themselves from having children, took different types of herbs to halt reproduction. And they did this because of the social and political climate of the Congo at the time. Black women have been talking this way. So I wanted to call attention to that because I don't think a lot of people know that information. And I also wanted to go back to my writings and I wanted to read how this is what I wrote. So when West 4B came out and there were so many Black women with sons hating it, it made no sense to me because the women in Liberia had sons also and were tired of what men were doing to their boy children. This is what they saw. These women were having children, and then their children were being sent off to war and they died. Why would you continue to birth children in a climate like that? So the women said, no, we will halt. We will stop bringing children here because it's not good to bring children here. And also, this is a side note. There are a lot of people who think that there's so many women in Korea who are practicing 4B. That's a lie. The amount of women in Korea practicing 4B is minuscule. And 4B is not the reason why the birth rate has declined in South Korea. The birth rate was already on a decline, but instead of the men in the government taking responsibility for waging a war that made women have less children, 4B is being blamed on population decline. This is ridiculous. When there is war, women have less children. When there is economic instability, women have less children. You don't continue to procreate if you cannot afford to do so. So to blame women and 4B for the reason why the population is declining is a male tactic, it is nefarious, and it is a lie. People do not have children because they cannot afford to do so. The population in South Korea is not declining because 6 women are practicing 4B. And I want to say 6 because it's not many women. So that's another thing that you can also research, but we need to get to the bottom of these lies and these beliefs that, well, maybe these women are the reason why there's no first graders in South Korea. That was the climate that was already happening because of how expensive it is to survive and live there. This is happening all over the world. And instead of men taking accountability and allocating resources equally, they blame the woman for not having children because she cannot afford to do so. This is male pattern behavior. Remember what I said before, men don't think things through. They never do. We spoke about Decree 770 or I think it's Decree 770 of Romania, and how the Prime Minister of Romania, he halted birth control, halted abortions, took it all away because he wanted his economy to boom. And what happened as a result of that? Women had countless children, and they all ended up in orphanages. The women could not afford them. And many of those children didn't make it past the age of 5. And if you don't believe me, you can look it up. This is Decree 770 of Romania. This is not something hidden. This is just what happens when you insist on reproductive abuse as a means to control the bodies of women, the bodies of biological women. And I'm going to say biological women because I'm not going to do the argument in regards to, well, men can have babies too. Yeah, that's bullshit. But I'm going to go back to my readings and I'm going to go back to Cynthia G being right. She didn't say anything wrong. As a matter of fact, she said the same thing that the women in Liberia said in 2011. She said the same thing that the women in South Korea said in 2015. And she said the same thing that the women in South Africa, in the DRC, the Democratic Republic of Congo, in Ethiopia, Black women have been talking about halting childbirth. So to demonize one woman because it fits the narrative of Black women being evil is wrong. Even if you do have a son, you should still be concerned with child rearing because your son will also be a victim of patriarchy and capitalism. And that's the bottom line here. Children are not able, or we are not able to protect children under patriarchy. And this is where we are. So the goal with Bichulsan, The goal in Liberia is to stop having children so that you can avoid trauma. There's nothing wrong with that dialogue. Nothing at all. And I think we need to talk about that. So just to recap a little, she organized the strike. Lima organized the strike. She was awarded with the Nobel Peace Prize, and she was very successful. And she was so successful that many women around the world heard of what she did and decided to participate in their own strikes. So this garbage about Black women copying Korean women was just nonsense. The Black woman can't copy. She can't copy off of anyone because historically she has always been the blueprint. I am not sure how some Black women feel about that, but that is the truth. Black women have been decentering men and using all types of herbs to control their reproductivity since the dawn of time. She simply cannot copy anyone. So when I heard that there were countless Black men claiming that Black women were copying and culturally appropriating Korean women, I had to laugh out loud. Black men saying this is so ironic, right? Because let's just say that this is true. Let's just say that Black women did copy off of Korean women. Would that stop Black men from having romantic relations with these same Korean women who he claims hate Black women? I don't think so. I don't think he really gives a shit. But what we know about male pattern behavior is that males hate when women speak to one another, because when women speak to one another, they compare notes. And when you compare notes and you can all see that these men are using the same tactics, remember how Cynthia G had the preferences get the same treatment. How would the preferences know that they were getting the same treatment if they didn't speak to Black women? This is what men don't like. They don't like for women of other races to kind of link forces, because when women of other races, when biological women of all races link forces, they can see that what happens to them globally is because of their sex. Not the gender, but their biological sex. And women can see this globally. And I don't think men like for women to kind of have that knowledge. And I wrote that these are all male tactics. This is male thought patterns of behavior. Bichulsan is no childbirth, and that is a firm no to having any children or to stop having children altogether. And this is because, one, you cannot protect children from the patriarchy. And two, it is impossible to shield male children from degenerate male culture. Mothers and fathers could have the best of intentions, and Cynthia G said this before, for these boys, what the culture outside of the home wins every time with the male. And we see that. It wins with the girl child as well. And since the environment is chaotic and not beneficial, for the sound upbringing of a child. 4B says to halt child reproduction. This society does not deserve children, and many Black women do not deserve what the Black male child will become in a society that hurts him as well. Think about the video at the top of this video, the news clipping. This just happened in New York City maybe a day or so ago. And this is a man in almost broad daylight dragging a Black woman's body down the street in his motorized wheelchair. And this man, the reason why it's all over the newspapers here is because he has a rap sheet that goes back to 1993, more than 200 arrests. And he's able to walk around on the street unchecked. And the girl that he did this to, you saw in the video that she wanted to be a lawyer. She had her whole future ahead of her. So this is the male that everyone is talking about. Everyone is talking about. So when we read that, the intro from Tumblr, and what the girl said about how men are blind to their own historical evils and they're blind to the behavior of other men, this is what everyone is talking about. And I wanted to also say patriarchy hurts the male too. And we see that with his behavior and society's obsession with that exploitation. I could be very wrong about Sin G's message, but that is what I got from it. Her message was on YouTube before 4B even hit, and she was torn apart for some shit that was already being practiced globally. Women in South Korea literally said no children, and no one called them child murderers or killers, and no one said shit because the package of the deliverer was different. But those women learned from all women, and they came to the conclusion that a child is better unborn than to be born and made to suffer in a world that the male destroyed. Are you a Cynthia G fan? Were you ever a fan of hers? Do you miss her on YouTube? I do. I posted the other day that I miss hearing about the sugar booty mandingo air mattress warriors on this app. I kind of miss that intro that she used to give. But if you are a Sinji fan, leave your most favorite Sinji line in the comment section. Let me know that you made it to the end of this video by hashtagging 4B, and also like, share, and subscribe. And thank you. Thank you again.